unique, but one that really stands out is attention to detail.
The spin-off prequel series that a lot of people seem to claim is even...
Now, if you just tell me who your supplier is, I think this can end very well for you.
What are you doing, detective? What are you doing talking to my client without me present? You sneaky Pete? Which is which?
Criminals are seen as the subgroup within a society that goes against the law to achieve something. Whether it is to be able to earn more profit, raise social status, or terminate an individual's existence entirely for their safety and protection. Although these characteristics tend to make everyone think that a criminal must be a bad guy, can a criminal also be a good guy? Can somebody be a good guy, but also a criminal? Further investigate this, we will be looking at Better Call Saul from Season 1 through 5, as the current season, Season 6, is still airing at the time of this recording. Saul Goodman, a two-dimensional character in Breaking Bad, becomes the story's primary focus, which to my surprise was much layered in terms of this character compared to Walter White. Although it may not be as action-packed as Breaking Bad, the writing in Better Call Saul has definitely improved tremendously, especially writing the origin story of Saul Goodman. We will divide his character up into two main characteristics to analyze: morals and loss of respect, which are similar topics we analyzed in our previous video on the Breaking Bad universe. We will also briefly reference Breaking Bad further to understand the depth and character of Saul Goodman.
I am not turning down the money. I am turning down you. You get it? I want nothing to do with you. Ever since I met you, everything I have ever cared about is gone. Ruined, turned to shit. Dead ever since I hooked up with the great Heisenberg.
What separates Saul Goodman from Walter White is that despite Saul Goodman's heavy engagement in criminal activities, it does not lead him astray from his morals. Saul Goodman, aka Jimmy McGill, was known as Slippin' Jimmy all his life for his deceitful acts as a con artist. Although this has led him to be behind bars for a while, he was forced by his brother, Chuck McGill, a successful attorney of HHM, to pursue a different path in life to redeem himself. Unfortunately, despite his path to redemption to turn over a new leaf in his life, he couldn't help but cut corners to achieve his goal through con artist tactics. For example, he was altering legal documents, lying, and planting evidence. His unconventional ways on the outside make him a criminal, but that does not necessarily make him a bad guy. See, although he uses these tactics, he doesn't let it corrupt him compared to Walter White. Walter, in the first place, was a good guy that turned into a bad guy, while Saul Goodman, or Jimmy McGill, was a good guy, but was good at being a bad guy. Second, Walter White lets the meth business corrupt him and becomes ruthless and inhumane to grow his empire, while Jimmy McGill did not. Breaking Bad was about Walter White becoming Heisenberg, while Better Call Saul was about Jimmy McGill becoming Saul Goodman. Both have drastic character development. as they become different characters near the end of the series, while Walter White had lines he crossed that made him immoral, while Jimmy McGill did not. This was hinted at in Breaking Bad when Saul Goodman showed Walter White about him poisoning a kid, which he demanded to cut ties with Walt.
Go the extra mile. Only you never told me that kid would wind up in the hospital. You know, take that thing and get the hell out of here. You and me, we're done.
In end business, Walter White intimidatingly came up to him and demanded that he'll tell him when their business ends.
We're done when I say we're done.
This scene showed that Jimmy had lines he did not cross, like Walter White. He was explored much more in Better Call Saul, when Jimmy secretly changed his brother's legal documents in order to make a fool of himself in front of a very important client, Mesa Verde. Chuck knew that it was Jimmy. Jimmy paid the guy at the printing shop to not tell Chuck that he was here so he could get exposed for his despicable act. When Chuck fainted during his heavy interrogation against the potential witness, Jimmy, watching from across the street, hurried to save his brother without the second thought of potentially letting his master plan of deception fall apart. This is entirely different from Walter White. In one of the infamous scenes in Breaking Bad, Walter White enters Jane's house and finds Jesse Pinkman and Jane completely drugged out in bed. He then witnesses Jane choke on her vomit while Walter White resists the temptation to rescue her and let her slowly die. This scene alone shows the lines Walter White would cross to protect his meth business, since Jane was technically in the way of Walter since Jesse was becoming slowly less active in the meth business as he was overly obsessed with his girlfriend. The contrasting characteristics of crossing certain lines of morality and both of these characters show why Jimmy McGill, or Saul Goodman, is the real good guy, while Walter White isn't.
The lesson is, if you're going to be a criminal, do your homework.
Wait, I'm not a bad guy.
I didn't say you're a bad guy. I said you're a criminal.
What's the difference?
I've known good criminals and bad cops, bad priests, honorable thieves. You can be on one side of the law or the other. But if you make a deal with somebody, you keep your word. You can go home today with your money and never do this again. But you took something that wasn't yours, and you sold it for a profit. You're now a criminal. Good one, bad one, that's up to you.
I can get more pills.
Throughout most of the show, Jimmy McGill was trying to prove to Chuck that he can integrate and become a part of society again, like a civil person. That is why Jimmy pursued law to impress Chuck, which he has been doing since he moved to Albuquerque to work at his brother's law firm. Jimmy relentlessly tried to win his brother's approval, but still did not get his brother's respect due to his past. Jimmy, in this case, cared about the respect from people around him and tried really hard not to lose it. Even Kim Wexler, his girlfriend, was on the edge of Jimmy's actions and his notorious past. That is why Jimmy wanted to work at HHM and Davis and Maine in order to prove to Chuck and Kim Wexler that he was normal like everyone else, when he knew he wasn't, and only pursued this in order to impress the people around him, completely losing himself in the process as his self-denial became evident. In Saul Goodman's, or Jimmy McGill's case, Jimmy was afraid of losing that respect, while in Walter White's case, it was completely different. Walter White feel like he is obligated to lose respect because he needs to be the breadwinner for his family by providing them financially no matter the cost and sacrifice. Walter White does not care if he loses this respect, while Jimmy McGill does. All bad people are criminals, but are all criminals bad people? I believe giving a much deeper look and to watch the character development of Saul Goodman, it gives us a better insight into why that is not always the case. Compared to Walter White, Saul Goodman isn't corrupted by his criminal activities, since it is evident that Saul Goodman definitely has stronger morals judgment compared to Walter White. Therefore, out of all the Breaking Bad characters, Saul was probably a better Walter White.
Wait, Jimmy, what?
It's all good, man.